All right, welcome back, also for the people online. This is the second part of this afternoon session. There's another 3 presentations. And the first one is by Arianna Moretti and Sebastian Barzaghi. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. So today, Arianna and I will present one of our current projects we are working on, called Chadask. And we will start with some context first. So we are both working since 2.5 years, more or less, within a huge project called Changes, which is a European project whose objective is to promote and preserve Italian cultural heritage. And within Changes, there are lots of different spokes. And in particular, we are working in the spoke number 4, which focuses on using digital technologies to promote, preserve, and use in innovative ways cultural heritage objects in museums and art collections in particular. And within spoke 4, we have worked on a pilot study, which was the digitization of a temporary exhibition here in Bologna, in Palazzo Poggi, and called The Other Renaissance, which was dedicated to Ulisse Aldrovandi, an Italian botanist, very famous, very important. And this exhibition was really interesting because it was composed by extremely rich and different objects. Here you can see a couple of taxidermied lions. And basically, the idea was to digitize all these objects and create a digital twin of the exhibition itself, considering also the space surrounding these objects and the rooms within them. So we have, of course, it was a huge project involving lots of different people, and we had many challenges. So with respect to us two, we met a challenge, which was to convert the metadata and the paradata of the cultural objects, starting from a series of tables, and convert them into linked open data. And as one of the many results that we have generated, we also created a knowledge graph called ChadKG, and which is used basically as the main source of descriptions and process information about the digital twin. And we published, of course, this knowledge graph on Zenodo, and it also is available online in the form of a static website that we generated automatically using a software of ours called Spook. So why do that? Basically, we all know that we are more and more required to publish data in fair formats for scientific reasons. And linked open data are one of these type of fair formats. And in order to use, to have and use LOD, starting from data of different formats, we need to do crosswalks, basically. We need to transform this data from a format into a series of RDF triples. And these conversions need lots of different components, but 2 main components are the data model and a data model used as a blueprint for the conversion, and a mechanism to technically and practically do that, which is called materialization. So with respect to the first element, the semantic model, the data model, we developed a application profile called ChadAPI. And basically, it is our way to formalize descriptions of cultural heritage objects and the digitization processes they went through during our work. And it was developed using the SAMOD methodology, a knowledge engineering methodology to develop ontologies that is agile, that is iterative, and so it is really easy to extend a model and gradually make it more and more complex as you see fit. And also another another interesting point is the fact that ChadAPI is completely based on reuse. We didn't invent anything. We had to reuse basically everything that we needed, especially within the CDOC CRM model and its siblings model, and of course, external existing controlled vocabularies such as AAT from Getty. With respect to the second component, the materialization mechanism, we ultimately have chosen a mechanism based on mapping languages. And in particular, we picked a Morph KGC, which is a tool that is based on Python. And basically, it allows us to use RML, which is the RDF mapping language, and in particular in the format of YAML, which is RML written as YAML, basically. And it allows us to do lots of configurations that allows us to decide which data and how this data has to be converted into RDF. And moreover, it also allows us to add new user-defined functions to further extend the configuration and personalization capabilities. And we started with Morph KGC, then we developed an extension called Morph KG Chad, which Arianna will explain. And finally, we arrived to the tool that we are currently working on now, which is called Chad Ask. So now Arianna will talk about it.
Okay, just going quickly through this slide. Here we present all of the main components of Morph KG Chad, and basically, as envisioned by Morph KGC, which is the original software, we developed a pre-made configuration file, two mapping files, one for the digitization process and the other one for the museum objects. Then we added several user-defined functions because the original CSV dataset had a very complex format, and the built-in functions provided by Morph KGC were not enough. So then we added a launch file, which manages also some pre-processing and post-processing functions, because basically, again, Morph KGC is meant to be used on a bit simpler cases. And finally, according to two reviews suggestion that we recently received, we also added a monitor script and a quality checker, so that now we also increase the fairness degree of this project. The main issues that we saw developing this approach is that actually it currently works for our current project. Everybody can reuse it if the data are collected originally with the same CSV template that we used in this project, but any sort of modification or extension of the original purpose is not currently covered. And okay, as you can see, it's actually a tool based on a mapping language, so it's meant to be a bit more accessible for non-technical users. But as you can see in this slide, actually, it still requires a degree of technicality. In this slide, we try to show the conversion process of a very, very simple field, which is only the date. And you can see that in this part, you need, of course, to call a function, to specify parameters, which links the mapping file, which is the one that you see on the left, to call the user-defined function on the right, and eventually obtain the output RDF triple. So the current limitations, as I was introducing before, basically consist in the fact that when we work with multidisciplinary groups of experts, we cannot expect that everyone is acquainted, that has some sort of confidence in using the technical tools. And we acknowledge the necessity of finding a balance between preserving the informative content and formalizing data. The current limitations of MorphKGC consist in being still complex, as I was saying, and the task of creating mappings is a bit repetitive, and of course, repeating the same sort of mappings manually, the possibility of introducing new mistakes is pretty high. Our extension is meant to allow the user to touch the code as little as possible, but at the same time, it's not actually very flexible at the moment. So we arrived to the development of Chadask, which is a software extension of our previous software extension, which helps non-technical users formalizing their domain knowledge through answers to a survey that we developed. Using Lime server questionnaires, which allows us to collect the feedback in a structured format, which is a JSON file that, thanks to our Chadask software, is then converted into YAML file and configuration file. So how did we develop this software? Basically, first of all, we classified the user-defined function that we developed in four main groups that are the functions for generating ERI, the string conversion to controlled values, separation, extraction, and management of complex values, and dates management. Then we try to identify and describe as clearly as possible the parameters. And we created a decision tree organizing the functions and which allows us to map the questions to the specific the function that is meant to manage the answer to that question. And finally, our software actually provides for the specific part of conversion of the answers to the mapping and configuration files. Okay, our demo is for at the moment a very simple one. We try to implement in the survey only 3 cases. The first one is super easy and it's about the configuration file. Then the second one is about a simple case of mapping in which only one user-defined function is called. And the third one is a nested mapping in which the output of the first function is meant to be the input of the second one. So in this slide, where we added as many arrows as possible to make it as complicated as possible to read, basically we tried to explain how the questions answers can be directly converted into mapping rules. So the first question is what's the field name? As you can see in the blue highlight. The name of the field is directly used as a parameter in the mapping file. Then the second question asks if the field contains multiple value, and if the answer is positive, we ask for the separator, which is going to be another of the parameters, which means that we are going to develop this mapping file. And the software will automatically divide the content of the CSV field each time it actually encounters the separator. And finally, for building the ERI, in this case, the example is about the acquisition tools ERI generation. So we are building the subject of a triple. And there is a multiple choice. So what does the value of this field represent? You can choose among some different options. In this case, the answer is electronic device, since we were talking about the acquisition tools. And you see there is in the software that manages all of this conversion, a dictionary mapping the label, the human readable label you find in the questionnaire, with the code that is then added to the creation of the ERI. So now I leave the floor to my colleague for the future developments.
So about what's next, certainly we have to test a lot. not only CHADASC, the software that Arianna just presented, but also all the methodology itself, including the model itself. And we have to test them with respect to domain extensions, for example, because of course our model is still partial, and we already discovered many ways in which we need to extend what we are already modeling, because of course cultural heritage is a huge field with lots of different ways to express different things. Then we also have to test their usability in separate standalone projects and evaluate this reusability of CHADAP, but also of the methodology itself. We thought about implementing Mitao, which is a software developed by one of our colleagues, which allows for automated code execution, basically, and which, according to us, it might be very interesting to implement with CHADASC. And we have a lot of uncovered mapping possibilities to integrate with Morph-KG CHAD. So, of course, this is another future development. And finally, having a more clean, automated reporting of errors for understanding which data are inconsistent during the whole workflow. And that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Perfectly on time, so there's space. In the meet. Hopping on, very good. So I'm gonna start off and ask a question that might make you want to roll your eyes or sigh or groan. So in the Netherlands, regularly when we talk with people from archives and museums about digitizing and explicitly modeling their data, they nowadays, of course, mention large language models. And so there's all kinds of issues with doing that. But is there a way in which that can be used? I was thinking about the questionnaire and looking at the data. To what extent could things be automatically filled in by just having a look at the data by a model like that? I don't know. Probably this question has been asked to you before. Might have already answered, but I'm curious.
Okay.
So thank you for the question. For now, we talked about it, but very, very superficially, because we were much more focused on making sure that what is happening right now is the way we want. Mm-hmm. But I personally started experimenting a bit with LLMs with respect to data modeling. Like I'm working like a very small personal project of mine just to understand how it works. But basically, I was because it's been months since I was last working on it. But basically, I was developing an agent that leverages Gemini, and my idea was to have this agent and ask it like through prompts to develop a very small piece of domain, automatically producing also documentation according to SAMOD. I was curious to see if it was possible, because SAMOD is a very not complex, but it is very rich in documentation as a process. And there are some aspects of SAMOD that are like problematic to do in a manual way. So I'm really interested in implementing software and ways to facilitate it. And LLMs, of course, might fall into this. So I started experimenting in that direction. So I think that it might be interesting to experiment in the future developments about extending ChatGPT for new projects or new domains within the cultural heritage.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Okay, on my side, I mainly worked on the development of the mappings, and since, of course, this tool is meant to improve also the interaction for people that do not have a huge background knowledge of the technical aspects. Initially, this was actually very functional in order to have a more direct interaction with our colleagues. But at certain point, since it was mainly us developing the code, there was a moment in which I asked myself, okay, the mapping is very complicated. Of course, this tool is not hugely used, and to some extent, maybe it would have been easier to use a code-oriented approach. At the same time, actually, I think that, of course, developing the mappings for very repetitive tasks in which it was very easy also for us to introduce some sort of errors. I sometimes debug the code using also AI. But for what concerns, in this case, we are not specifically thinking about just the development of the mapping. Chalask is mainly meant, of course, to make it automatic, but the main and the initial point of that is allowing people outside of the technical domain to extract their domain knowledge into a format that is actually manageable to us. So the passage between the unstructured domain knowledge and the creation of controlled values and to machine readable values, I think that at the moment it's not actually that easily manageable with LLMs, because it still needs some sort of direct interaction between domain experts and digital humanists. In this way, of course, we are also in the we are also the human in the loop, so we basically can directly double check the answers that domain experts provide. But developing a questionnaire that basically exactly gave as output what we were meant to use for the mappings is actually, for the moment, a very efficient pipeline in which we totally can keep the control over the process. In this moment, we encounter so many I don't know how to say it, like issues or difficult points in doing, making automatic this approach while keeping a strong control over it, that I would not, at this moment, I would not want LLMs to manage this process mainly. So yes, that's it for now.
Okay.
We're a bit of control freaks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's good. Any other questions? If not, then yeah, okay.
For your presentation, I was wondering, I know you are working with CSV files, but are you planning to expand the application and the software for other formats? For example, in my case, I'm working with annotations on digital images that are based on JSON files and D files. There are basically already compliant with the RDF conversation and stuff like that. But it could be sometimes, even if the JSON files are very, I don't know what to say, but very clear, sometimes thanks to the labels and stuff like that, are not very easy to manage. So I'm wondering if you are planning also to develop extension for formats, different formats.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Actually, it's very interesting, and I think that the main point is that the initial software, so Morph KGC, already manages JSON files, and actually the conversion process is easier if you start from a JSON file. In our case, it was a bit more complicated because since we work in a multidisciplinary field, the initial format is CSV, but was based on Google spreadsheet, which actually makes way easier to fill the data set. And the main reason why we didn't work on JSON files was actually the reason that we were trying to keep, we needed to keep, we were not trying to keep involved the domain experts. So using JSON files would have been way easier for us, but wouldn't have been efficient for non-technical users. It would be interesting, I think, to integrate it as well. And basically, I mean, at this point, since the part of conversion between the chat ask answers and the mapping files was managed by us only, we decided to export it in JSON format. So when the domain experts are not directly involved in filling the initial data set, phase that in this case is already covered by the use of the questionnaire, for the last step of conversion, we actually are using JSON and we plan to keep using that. So thank you very much for the question.
Okay, we're out of time, so
Okay,
our speakers again.